Welcome to the next section of the course. When we built our card components in the previous section, we used only React functional components. We now know that our components can be plain JavaScript functions that return JSX. But as we'll come to discover over the course of this section, there is an alternative way to create React components using JavaScript classes. And to be honest, this is more of the older way, and some people would say the more deprecated way or legacy way to build React components. So why do I want to introduce this slightly outdated topic to you? Well, I think the best way for you to learn React, as well as to observe the evolution of the library over time, is to start with the older solution, which is still present in the React library and is still going to be in plenty of code bases around the world, and then transition or progress to the new, more modern way of solving the same problems, but instead of using classes, we're then going to use React functional components with hooks. So once again, class components and functional components are different approaches to building components in React. They're both designed to solve the same problems. It's just the more older way of doing it versus the more modern way of doing it. And so what we're going to do is build this new project, a user form. We're going to start out with the old approach, and then we're going to learn about a whole bunch of React concepts related to that. And then we're going to write a test suite for that user form. And that is also going to allow us to introduce the React testing library. And then we're going to refactor our old design from using the older approach of class components to then using React functional components in combination with hooks. So you're going to get a complete developer history of the React library over time and know how to approach any kind of code you see, old React code and new React code as well. The key kind of problem that is going to be the centerpiece of these sections is managing state. And state is simply component data that changes over time. Right now, our components have been pretty static. They have been unchanging. Whatever is rendered onto the screen is simply rendered there. But we actually have an entirely powerful paradigm in React of being able to store data within components and having those components update whenever that data changes. And once again, that data that changes is called state, but more on that later. Let's dive into what we're actually building in this section. We're going to be building a user form, and I have two pictures of it side by side. The first thing to know is that our user form is going to operate in two possible modes, a registration mode and a login mode. And the user is going to be able to toggle between those two modes with a switch at the very top of the form. Now, when they toggle between those two modes, the form is actually going to change dramatically. For example, the header at the very top is going to give them a different greeting. When they are in registration mode, in other words, when the toggle is on the left-hand side, the register mode, we're going to see the text, "We're glad you're here." In comparison, as you can see on the right side, when the user form is in login mode, we're going to have a text of "Welcome back." Then there's also going to be a button at the very bottom, and the button text is going to vary. On the left-hand side, you can see it says register, and on the right-hand side, you can see it says log into account. And then the actual structure of the form is going to vary as well. On the left-hand side, if and only if the user is on registration mode, we're going to give them an additional input where they can confirm their password. Because typically when the user is signing up for a website, that's the only time they're going to have to confirm their password. Later on, when they're logging in, they're going to only need to enter the password once, right? And of course, these are differences, but at the same time, if we observe these components side by side, much like the taco cards and burrito cards in the previous section, we can see that there is a component here, that these two forms are similar. And so we're going to talk about very similar ideas of enabling reusability while maintaining the elements that remain the same in our central component. We're going to use one component to represent both of these forms that we see on the left-hand and right-hand side, and then talk about how we can customize those specific elements that matter. And state is going to be a big factor in how we're going to be able to do this. All right. So to summarize everything, we're going to be building a user form over the course of the next couple of sections. We're going to start with the older way of doing things in React, which is using class-based components. We're then going to write a test suite, and then we're going to refactor and build it using the modern way, the newer way. And you're going to be exposed to all possible paradigms of building React components within the React ecosystem. So lots of fun up ahead. Hope you're excited to take a little trip down memory lane, go a little bit back into React's history, and I will see you in the next lesson.